About a week ago, I made a video criticizing the Netflix show Wednesday, and I'll admit it, I was wrong. Here's what happened. This channel is small, it's under 2,000 subscribers, and yet somehow it's attracted some of the most thoughtful and nice commenters on the internet. And after I released my video about why I didn't like Wednesday, a lot of people responded, sharing their opinions and their perspectives, and that really made me re-examine what I'd said. And to be honest, I could have done a better job articulating my feelings about the show, and there are also some points of view that I hadn't considered. So today, I'd like to talk about the 4 things that I've since re-examined about the series, and hopefully this time I'll do a better job talking about it. So let's start with this. 1. The show is better the second time. In my original video, I talked about how, in my view, the show's biggest weakness was how much it relied on a season-long mystery arc, and I largely stand by that criticism, but what I didn't realize was that once the mystery is solved and the clues were revealed, a rewatch of the series becomes necessary to truly understand whether or not the series works. And let me tell you this, watching the series for a second time was a very different experience. For example, in this go-around, the bland normie love interest Wednesday meets at the coffee shop suddenly becomes a far more compelling character, especially with the knowledge that, and this is a spoiler alert, he's the villain of the whole piece. Watching Hunter Doohan's performance as Tyler becomes interesting now that you know that as you're watching him, he's not flirting, but toying with Wednesday. And with this knowledge, the scenes between Tyler and Wednesday shift. Wednesday's not just an infatuated teenager, she's being manipulated. And once you know the ultimate fate of Eugene, his time spent investigating with Wednesday takes on a wonderfully sad tone that wasn't there before. This is the same of any scene involving Principal Weems. At first I viewed her character with suspicion, much like Wednesday did. I kept her at arm's length, judged her for her cold, aloof attitude, but on second viewing, yeah, I liked her a lot more, and I understand her a lot more. I sympathize with where she's coming from, and similar to Eugene, watching her early scenes in the series, watching her try to help Wednesday, well, all of that feels sad now, knowing what ultimately happens to her. So much of the series changes on a second viewing that I'd actually argue that the core premise of the show also shifts. Now that you know that Principal Weems, Therapist Kinbot, and even Sheriff Galpin were all more or less what they were presented as being from the beginning, well-meaning adults who wanted what was best for Wednesday, boy, do Wednesday's actions take on a different meaning. And this leads us to 2. Wednesday's social problems. Let's take a moment to discuss the character of Wednesday Addams. On my first watch, I thought Jenna Ortega's performance was really good, but I also felt like she wasn't given a lot to work with. To me, it felt like the writers were just writing a version of Wednesday that was based on the 90s movies without giving too much thought as to why she was written that way. But here again, I was wrong. Looking back at the 8 episodes of Season 1, for a majority of the series, she's absurdly, horrifyingly, incredibly bad at figuring out what's happening around her. And once you know what characters are good and which ones aren't, it's almost comical how poor Wednesday's judgment is. Now, put a pin in that, and now think about how much Wednesday wants to understand the world around her. She's constantly trying to figure out why the world works the way that it does. She's suspicious of everybody, obsessed with mysteries, and is even writing a novel about a teen detective. Wednesday feels a compelling drive to come to some greater understanding about those around her, even though it's probably the thing that she is the worst at.
I'm not sure why you're becoming upset.
Yeah, that's kind of the problem. I mean, call me crazy, Wednesday, but you keep giving me these signals.
It's not my fault I can't interpret your emotional Morse code.
Then let me spell it out.
And so, I'm gonna throw this out there. Is Wednesday on the autism spectrum? Like, Okay, I don't think that the show's writers meant it that way, but watching the show again, I kind of wonder if we can read Wednesday's difficulties engaging in the world around her not as the result of her being an Addams, but as a result of her being neurodivergent. And at the very least, I think that Wednesday becomes more sympathetic when you attribute her problems not to her being aloof and withdrawn for the sake of feeling superior to others, but as a result of some inner trouble that she's having understanding people. But Wednesday isn't the only character that I misjudged, and not only did I misjudge the other characters, I also misunderstood their place in the story, which leads us to 3. Wednesday isn't about Wednesday. Let me explain. When I watched the show Wednesday for the first time, I viewed it as, well, a show about Wednesday Addams, but it's not. The show is, in large part, an ensemble show. Even though Wednesday Addams is technically the lead, she's just the lead character, not the only character. Watching the show for a second time, I was struck by how many scenes Wednesday wasn't in, how many plot lines she was only indirectly involved in, and how much of the show's direction was dictated by the characters who surround her. Take Bianca, whose character arc closely mirrors Wednesday's. Bianca is a siren, which means that, even though she wears a necklace that dampens her powers, she can never truly know whether or not her powers are affecting those around her. This means that she can never be sure of who she can trust. This is, basically, Wednesday's problem throughout the series. And then there's Enid, a perky, colorful werewolf, except no, she's not quite a werewolf. In spite of intense social pressures, including pressure from her parents who want to send her to a werewolf conversion camp, Enid is struggling with her identity as a possibly not quite werewolf. How will she fit into this world? What is her place? To what extent does her identity rest on her genes, her lineage, her family? Well, that's what Wednesday is trying to navigate as she uncovers her family's secrets and tries to determine how much she is or is not like her mother. This is cool. This is interesting. This is good writing, and it is a lot better than I initially gave it credit for. Though, before we go, I also have to address one more thing. 4. The Monster Mystery. In my initial video, I was very critical of the monster mystery at the center of Wednesday. I thought it was boring, and I somewhat stand by that. I would much rather have seen scenes of Bianca and Enid and Eugene and Principal Weems and the other students we barely meet. I don't care about the monster that's attacking people, and even now that I know that the monster is Tyler taking on a Mr. Hyde persona, I don't care. The storyline ends up being this. In ye olde pilgrim days, a jerk named Joseph Crackstone kills a bunch of outcasts. Wednesday's ancestor escapes and kills Crackstone, but centuries later, Crackstone's ancestor, Garrett Gates, becomes infatuated with Morticia Addams. Angry that she wouldn't date him, he tries to kill all the outcasts at Nevermore, but accidentally kills himself. As a result, his sister vows revenge, assumes a new identity, and gets a job at Nevermore, attempting to resurrect Joseph Crackstone. And what the hell does any of this have to do with Wednesday? Here's where I'm at a loss. I mean, do you care about Joseph Crackstone? Did you find his plotline interesting? To me, it was just too removed, about 400 years too removed, from Wednesday. It had nothing to do with her struggles, with her world, with her choices, with her goals, with her fears. Even thematically, I struggled to find anything more than the most superficial links to Wednesday's story. And I'll also ask this, why did an ultra-conservative pilgrim who hated outsiders and tried to burn witches use resurrection magic and a sorcerer's magic staff? That doesn't track for me. And ultimately, how does Wednesday defeat him? Oh, by allowing the ghost of her descendant to heal her and by stabbing him in the back with a sword. Even the circumstances of the mystery's resolution are just boring. I stand by my assertion that Wednesday's visions feel more like the product of the writers being too lazy to bother with her finding actual clues, and I still feel like the show would have been much stronger if it had abandoned this element altogether, or just come up with a better mystery. But overall, for the most part, I was wrong about Wednesday. Thanks to your comments, I took a second look and had a lot more fun with this show, and I want to thank you for that. I wouldn't have given this show a second look if it hadn't been for you and your very kind, very thoughtful, very compelling comments, and I just honestly want to thank you for leaving them. You guys are awesome, and I really hope that you enjoy this video. Well, now I feel kind of dumb after saying all of that, asking you to subscribe, but if you did think that this video was worth your time, maybe consider looking at some of the other stuff that I've got on this channel. I know the stuff that I talk about is kind of random, ranging from Ted Lasso to Young Sheldon to Alf, but I have a lot of fun. I think you might too, and I also encourage you to comment below and tell me what I'm still wrong about when it comes to Wednesday. I really, really do appreciate your feedback, and I hope you all have a great day. Thank you so much. Bye.